Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, April 17th. It's 5:30, and I'm calling the Airport Commission meeting to order. I'm going to ask you if you would please the honor and lead us with the pledge today, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The agenda posted.
The agenda has been posted.
Let's do a roll call just to say that Chairman Donna is not able to join us today. We wish him the best. Let's do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Burt Behrman,
Here.
Burke,
Here.
Caldwell,
Here.
Corcoran,
Here.
Delgado. Mr. Feldman said he might be joining us later today. Commissioner Fong,
Here.
Hughes, here. Martin,
Here.
Michaelis,
Here.
Park, here. Pye,
Here.
Suero is excused. Wise,
Here.
Weissman is excused. Young,
Here.
thank you. We have a quorum.
Great. Are there any changes that we need to make to the agenda today? Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the agenda? Second.
Take roll call. Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Berryman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Fong,
Aye.
Hughes, yes. Martin,
Yes.
Michaelis,
Yes.
Clark, yes. Pye,
Yes.
Wise, Young,
Yes.
thank you.
We have the minutes from December 6th we need to approve. I have a motion to approve.
Before we move on, to make sure we get any public comments for items not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading ahead of the notes. Are there any public comments?
We have nothing scheduled per se. We do have some guests via Zoom. Does anyone via Zoom want to have a public comment? Please raise your virtual hand. Mr. Willem. Me?
John, are you with us?
I am. I can make the comment during the rental car part, or I could do it now, whichever your preference.
Go ahead, John, do it now, please.
Okay. So my name again is John Wilhelmy. I'm a resident of Playmore Avenue. I previously had filed numerous complaints about a high-pitched whistling noise from Enterprise Rent-A-Car's washing operations on North Civic Drive, and it's something that we used to be able to hear all day long. I'm very pleased to report that as of April 9th, the whistling noise generally no longer occurs. The company evidently changed its operating mode, and the whistling occurs only when the equipment's brought up in the morning, and it no longer occurs all day. An unfortunate exception is that we've heard it quite a bit in the last hour, which I hope is just an anomaly. But in any case, the change in operations has finally allowed us to open our windows during the day, hold gatherings in our backyard, and we're very happy with that. So I wanted to thank Jeremy, Nikki, and any other airport and city official who helped make this change take place. And I also want to thank the commission for hearing us out on this in the past few meetings. I honestly would not have elevated things in this manner if it didn't impact us. So while it still stings a little bit that we had to endure this for more than 6 months, I'm more than willing to put this one in a rearview mirror and get back to how things used to be, which is, I think I said last time, it's, the residents minding their own business on our side of the fence and the airport conducting its own business on its side of the fence. So I thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. We'll have some other comments that we get for the rental car piece as well, but thank you for sharing those tonight. Are there any other public comments? We're all good?
Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak at this time? Please raise your virtual hand. No, thank you.
All right, in minutes, they were included in the packet for December 6th. Let's take a roll call to approve the minutes. Do I need to get a motion or can we go right to the roll call there? Approval of the minutes for December 6th.
You can go for a motion in a second,
All right, can I need a motion, please? A second, got it?
Who second?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Bang,
Yes.
Berryman,
Yeah.
Burke, Caldwell,
Abstain.
Corcoran, Fong,
Aye.
Hughes. Yes. Martin,
Yes.
Michaelis,
Yes.
Park. Yes. Pye,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all. We have new administrative assistant, Tanya Perez.
Hello,
Tanya, introduce yourself.
Tanya. I've been here for a good amount of time now. I started off as a temp and now officially as the administrative assistant. So I'm excited to work with you guys.
Awesome. Welcome. Tanya will be Paula's backup for our commission, so welcome.
Thank you,
Glad you're
thank you.
Number two, the run car wash, here we go. Jeremy.
So I don't think there's a whole lot to really report, in addition to what, John has already reported. We worked, for numerous hours to get, Enterprise to accommodate the noise. And so we were under the blowers being on all day long versus them on and off. And that's appearing to be a lot better than it was before. So
Questions or comments?
we're good.
I just wanted to build on John's feedback, just to give you credit for sticking with this. It would have been very easy to use the noise levels and to abandon our neighbors by just saying, hey, they're within noise levels, and you didn't do that. You worked with John and the other neighbors to figure this out. So it went way beyond what everybody thought the scope would be. But I really appreciate you and the effort of the staff and working with John and his neighbors to do this. I just wanted to build on John's comments. It was great. And we made a comment to message to John. We'll continue to monitor, but this is great news. Working with our neighbors, really much appreciated.
Jerry, can you just fill in 2 sentences, sort of what was the solution of shopping? What did we do? What happened?
Well, essentially the blowers were turning on and off multiple times a day as it would detect a car coming through the wash. Right. And so that was spinning up these motors multiple times during the day. And so what we finally concluded, well, that was after a couple things that we've added some extra noise barrier walls that we think has helped a little bit. But what we did is we just basically turned on the blower motors all day. So instead of them turning on and off, Enterprise was willing to just keep them on from 8 to 6 or whatever the hours are, just keep them constantly running all day. And that kind of white noise, I guess, kind of blends in with the rest of the noise. And with the barrier wall that we added, it helps with that constant noise. So I think it's been a really big improvement.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Great news for our neighbors.
Okay.
Anyone else on
Oh, yes.
this one?
Anyone else?
The public on this one?
Yeah, so we need to open for public comments.
Okay,
Yes,
we're doing that after every one of these things now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other public?
well, we don't have anyone else scheduled, but does anyone that is presently on Zoom wish to speak? Please raise your virtual hand. Okay, what about here presently? Does anybody have anything to add for this item? Okay, thank you.
Let's move forward to Conrad alternatives update. Harry.
All right, I've got the contract. So on the line with us is Ryan Hayes from Eaton Hunt. The commission may recall that back in February, we sent a terminal development concept to the city council for approval, and they asked us to go back and revisit the CONRAC, and specific to getting additional analysis on a traffic study, as well as potential alternatives for an alternate location. So we've done that exercise. Ryan is here to talk about it. I'm going to kind of beat him to the headline, which is our recommendation is unchanged. We still want to move forward with CONRAC as located. So I'll let Ryan speak to that.
Thank you, Harry. And Paula, it looks like I have the ability to share. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We all have your PowerPoint presentations. Go for it.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Christina, am I supposed to do anything on that? Please panelists.
Now can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Yes, as Harry said, we've done some planning on the CONRAC as directed by City Council to look at both on-site and off-site CONRACs. As Harry said, not to bury the lead, our recommendation is still the same, that the airport consider moving forward in the master plan with the CONRAC located on airport property, essentially immediately north of the terminal building is the location. We did look at 2 offsite locations. I'll mention some planning goals and assumptions that we had going into this, some pertinent development regulations, review again how the size of the CONRAC and the requirements, and then I'll show you the drawings of the sites. The 2 offsite locations did not score well under the evaluation matrix that we worked out with airport staff at the beginning of this analysis. The most important being the passenger experience. Obviously, those of you who are airline passengers who have traveled to airports where you are required to get on a shuttle bus to access your car rental, it decreases the level of it decreases the passenger experience, quite frankly, significantly. And given the high amount of rental car activity at the Palm Springs International Airport, we are recommending that the airport, essentially, as we said, move forward with the CONRAC on site for that most important reason, but other reasons being the costs of land acquisition and the cost of shuttling, of running a shuttle operation. We are going to run these through the rental car companies. We've got some meetings scheduled later this week to get their feedback. We fully expect the rental cars to support our recommendation to move forward with the on-site CONRAC, but I guess we'll find out this week. So this map on the right side of this slide shows the site 1 is basically the site that we're considering on airport, immediately north of the terminal. Site 2 is a site to the south of the terminal area, in between Kirk Douglas Way and Ramon. And site 3 is off airport property to the north and west of the terminal area, adjacent to Farrell Road and almost up to Vistachino Road. These are the goals that we established going into this analysis. These are the and then we also went through these assumptions to make sure that we were making the analysis as apples to apples comparison as we possibly could. We put together some cost estimates just really to illustrate that the cost of the CONRAC is significant. The cost of land acquisition and the shuttle bus would certainly increase things significantly, but at $450 million, the CONRAC itself is really the biggest cost. We also looked at this. The city of Palm Springs has land use and zoning considerations with each of these sites, particularly the 2 off-site areas. There are setback requirements with how far we're allowed to develop, particularly adjacent to residential development. So residential setbacks was a consideration. The city also has lot coverage requirements. In other words, we can't necessarily develop 100% of a total site. We're only allowed to develop certain percentage of sites depending on what site we're talking about. So all of those things played into the analysis, particularly on the off-site CONRAC locations. All of this was shown to you previously in our terminal planning for this master plan. The CONRAC requirements, just as a reminder, are fairly significant just because of again, the amount of rental car activity and the seasonality of the rental car activity that goes with the seasonality of airline passengers. We're recommending about a 1.5 million square foot ConRack facility that could be as many as 5 levels. And we've also discussed and included in our cost estimates the potential for one of those levels to be subsurface. So each of those levels, we're assuming about 15 foot per level. So it'd be a 60-foot ConRack if you went with one level below ground. Obviously, the circulation and the impacts on the neighborhoods with shuttle buses was an important consideration. This map on the right shows the shuttle routes that would basically provide the most direct access to and from the terminal to these offsite ConRack locations. And then we went through the effort of quantifying the estimated shuttle times, which you can see on the right. A lot of this was done in a previous 2020 study by a firm called Recondo, and we basically followed their methodology with these additional new sites. And site 2 would be about a 19-minute round trip. Site 3 would be about a 21-minute round trip for the shuttle bus. These are cost estimates over time at 5-year increments. There's also the consideration of the seasonality that I mentioned. You'd obviously have to run a lot more shuttle buses in the busy season than you would in the summer. So initially the operation would be 3 shuttle buses during the off season and 8 shuttle buses during the peak season, and over time that would need to increase as shown on this chart. And obviously the costs go up with the more buses and the more staff that are needed to run the operation. This is a drawing of the proposed on-site ConRack location shown in orange on the right. Obviously there's a ton of advantages to building the ConRack on site, but the most important is that passengers do not have to ride a shuttle bus and simply walk from the terminal building to the rental car facility, the ready return lot to pick up their car. Very similar to how rental car operations work at the airport today. Site 2 is, again, this is the site to the south of the terminal area in between Ramon and Kirk Douglas. One of the issues we ran into with this site is there's an open parcel, and that's the area that we were initially looking at for the ConRack. It's large enough to fit the 5-story ConRack that's being proposed at 1.5 million square feet, about 300,000 square feet per level. Unfortunately, there's medium density residential land use located to the west of this parcel, and there is, I mentioned those lot coverage requirements by the city. So it really makes this site unfeasible unless you acquire more property, which is what this drawing shows, is acquiring more property to the east. And we've heard a lot from the community that that's probably not a viable option as well. This week. Site 3 is the ConRack site to the north and the west along Farrell Road. Also not a lot of advantages to this site just because of the distance that rental car shuttle buses would have to travel, and particularly the fact that they would have to travel through residential neighborhoods is really the biggest disadvantage of this site. And there's also multiple landowners at this site, so land acquisition would be challenging and would likely take quite a few years. Harry and the airport staff team did ask us to consider, if we did build the ConRack offsite, then that frees up some space on airport property in the terminal area, and what could be done with that property. So this is just a drawing showing that the concourse, the planned northern concourse, could essentially be double loaded. And double loaded is an industry term that basically says you park aircraft on both sides of the concourse. Currently, we're planning for this concourse to be single loaded with aircraft only parked to the east. But if you didn't build the Conrack in this location, that essentially would allow you to park additional aircraft on both sides of the concourse. That's what that would look like. It would also give the airport the opportunity to expand vehicle parking in this area if the concourse were single loaded, and that's what this drawing shows. So again, going back to the matrix, we tried to keep this fairly qualitative with a high preference, medium preference, and low preference indicated by the three colors of green, yellow, and red. It's just fairly obvious that building the Conrack on airport property under these evaluation criteria makes the most sense. And just reminding you what our overall master plan concept for the terminal area looks like. Again, the Conrack is shown in orange in this drawing. This is the single loaded northern concourse, which is expected to be the first concourse constructed and include the federal inspection facility, as well as 7 new gates. Then the second phase of terminal is the southern concourse, which converts the regional concourse into kind of a more standard narrow body concourse. And that is our Conrack analysis. Questions?
Sorry, please.
My question is, in any of the Conracks that we're looking at, is the turnaround facility like we presently have on North Civic, would that stay on North Civic? Because what I'm getting at is if it stays on North Civic, it's not incorporated into the Conrack, we would have many round trips of return cars to go get cleaned and come back, which would be very far away on those other two, where the original plan number 1, that round trip is really minimized to North Civic to back. So is it included in that, or is it going to be separate?
Yeah, that's a good question. The analysis, again, I said we tried to keep it as apples to apples as possible. So we did assume that the Conrack, the 1.5 million square foot Conrack is assumed to include wash and maintenance facilities and ready return and rental car storage. So all basically an all-encompassing facility.
Yeah. Other questions? Please.
Ryan, there seemed to be a statement in the plan that said that existing maintenance and lots would be retained. Did I misread that?
I'm sorry, will you say again, which lot?
Yeah, I thought on one of the plans it said existing maintenance and wash lots would remain, which sort of sounds at odds with what we just discussed.
Yeah, good question. So the existing, if the airport move forward with and the city move forward with this recommendation to build the Conrack on site, there is the potential to continue with the existing locations of maintenance and wash and even some rental car storage if needed. Again, the plan, if the airport was able to construct a 5-story Conrack, the plan would be to relocate all of those facilities into the Conrack, but it's also a very expensive facility. So I think it's prudent planning to continue to reserve space for those wash and maintenance facilities where they are, if that needs to be the case for funding potential.
The two other questions quickly. One relates perhaps to the space issue is, I mean, I gather that during peak season, particularly under passenger activity level 4, there's the presumption that there won't be any parking availability in the Conrack facility, right? For airline passengers as opposed to just rental cars? Correct.
Certainly in the peak season. In the off season, that there may be the potential to have public parking in the facility.
And then finally, are there additional security considerations with option 1, given its proximity to the new northern terminal? I mean, will the walls adjoin? I mean, are there concerns that, Just speculating, do we need to worry about reinforcement or anything with a
There certainly
facility?
would, the architects would certainly have to consider that the access would just be at the beginning of the Conrack. I don't think there is envisioned to be any access down the concourse. They're simply located in close proximity to each other.
Please.
Two architecture questions. In terms of the proposal, the site one proposal, when we were initially discussing what the terminal, the options for the terminal might be, when we were discussing this in December, one of the things that we discussed was that site one, if we build a 5-level structure there as part of where the terminal is now, it would be a fairly large, high profile, for lack of a better word, hulking building. So number one, we've always been very concerned about how the architecture of the original terminal fits in with what might be this new Conrack structure. So number one, what do we think about what this structure will look like, given that the sketches we've seen so far are fairly large? And number two, can somebody assure me, somebody that is smarter geometry-wise than I am, that the view from the tower down to the tarmac will be unobstructed by this 5-story building?
Ryan, do you want to take that or you want me to take that?
Yeah, you can take the architecture questions, Harry. Absolutely.
So in terms of what it will look like when compared to the building, we're just in conceptual planning. The devil's kind of in the details when we get to that. So Gensler, when they eventually do start designing this, that's something that we're going to tackle with them to make sure that there's continuity in the design of the facility. In terms of the sight line, again, that's another Gensler issue, but the way this was envisioned from a planning perspective is that that sight line would be retained. In addition to that, however, since we're theoretically expanding and doubling our gates, we probably add some operational mitigations there to help with safety as well. So for example, like a ramp control element versus tower and ramp control, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Other questions, please? Yeah, just from looking at the cost perspective, in site 2 and site 3, there's an acquisition of land cost, but we were already planning to acquire land for parking over on the is that correct?
We had considered it, and that's still a consideration, but it's not something I'm prepared to discuss right now.
Okay, and then so I'm just trying to get at whether it's unfairly burdening site 2 and 3 with cost, because we're going to need shuttles for the overflow parking lots anyway, right? So is the amount of shuttles that we're going to need for overflow parking greater than or less than the amount of shuttles we're going to need for rentals?
That's a good question. I don't think we've done that analysis, but I would presume that we would have more burden on the rental car side. So we have a larger proportion of rental car traffic here than we do.
That's what I was wondering if it's. So just make a couple comments. The big objection, well, first of all, just for those of you who would send us communications on site 2, many of you who are landowners that would be involved in site 2, I hope this is a relief to all of you that this isn't, we're not going to move forward with this consideration, because we have a lot of feedback from landowners and people who know the land in site 2, expressing concerns. So I'm glad that we're abandoning that moving forward, because we have a lot of pushback on that. When this was proposed, the issue was always the scope and scale. And it seems, Ryan, you've given us one concession by going down 1 level. So instead of 6 stories, it's now 5 plus 1 below. I'd love to see what the impact would be if we went down 2 levels. I know at one point we said it was going to be a 30% increase if we went down X number of levels to try to minimize the scope or the scale of this building. But it'd be good to know what that option would be. We've gone down one level in this proposal, could we go down two, just to bury this building a little bit more and make it the size of it less offensive. I know in earlier discussions with the ad hoc committee long range plan, we saw some renderings where the fourth, fifth, and sixth level were scaled back. You've seen that done in some other buildings here in Palm Springs where they kind of scale it back so it doesn't have that height or that heft, so to speak. So again, I think to Eric's point, when we get to Ginsler or start to design this building, there are some ways that were discussed about how you minimize the sense of heft in that building by just stepping back on the fourth, fifth, and sixth levels. So I'd like to ask us to just look at burying another level in our discussions with Gensler, and then when we get to the design phase, we'll see other things they may do to minimize just the scale of the site. But the other thing is, City Council asked us to really look at the traffic impact. So now that we have resolved this issue, the recommendation moving forward was number one. Hopefully now we'll take a look at what is the traffic issue. But I think we can all agree relative to having shuttle buses going to option 3 and option 2, that alone will minimize some of the traffic piece. But we still have lots of cars, rental cars coming out. They've asked us to look at that. And I think, Ryan, that's one of our next steps. Is that right? The traffic study?
It is. It's part of this CEQA analysis, Chairman, that we need City Council's blessing on our overall master plan concept, and then we start the CEQA analysis, which includes consideration of traffic and traffic impacts.
What questions are asked?
Would alternative use 1 and alternative use 2 for site 1 be included in the traffic analysis, or should we be commented on here?
Just this. Just this. I think it was important that we looked at the original alternatives, what I shared with some of the folks who had objections about option number 2. We needed to look at the other options to say that we've done our work, we've done our due diligence now. But I think if we've landed on this, all the efforts now will be focused on how we make this work, what is the impact on traffic and other things with this plan. Not only for the contract, but for the whole phase 1 and phase 2 of 1A, the overall plan that was selected. Would you agree here?
I would agree.
Okay. Other comments? So here, what do we do? Are you looking for a formal endorsement of this?
So.
Is that why?
So we presented the airside alternative last meeting, and what we're asking for a vote on, a motion and a vote on tonight is for the full conceptual development plan for the airport. So what that would do, assuming the City Council approved it, it would give the airport the go ahead to approach the FAA and say, this is what we plan for the next 20 years. Please sign off on this, and they would give us a formal approval in theory.
So before we do that, is there any public comment? Anybody else on Zoom who would like to comment about this? All right. So do we need a motion to approve this and move forward here? Who'd like to move? I'll make a motion. Make a second? Second. Okay, let's do a roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Fong,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Michaelis,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Pye,
Yes.
Wise, Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, let's move forward. 8C, notice to proceed with the visit hearing.
Okay, I just wanted to provide the commission with a brief update on the strategic business plan for the airport. Back in December, I briefed the commission that the airport would be pursuing a strategic business plan. We've assigned that work to InterVistas, who is our planning consultant. Right now, they're working on an FIS study, as well as helping us develop a project plan so that we can phase our projects in over the next 20 years and make sure that we're spending, not overspending, and spending in the appropriate ways, and making sure that we're capturing what we need in terms of the facility. So InterVistas has just started their work on the strategic business plan. Their first kind of go at this is to get the internal airport staff together, managers and directors together, and do a visioning session with us. After which I believe their intent is to come to the full commission and get some feedback from the commission on what you would like to see in the strategic business plan as well. So I think our meeting is scheduled for next week with them. Don't quote me on that. But we'll be approaching the commission thereafter to get some feedback on a strategic business plan. But just wanted to provide that update. I did commit to quarterly updates in December, so this is the first of those updates.
Questions on any of that? Any comments from the public?
Do we have any comments from anyone on Zoom? Please raise your virtual hand. We do not have any public comments at this, for this item.
Okay. Can we proceed to 8D, relocating existing art? Victoria?
Hi there, good evening, commissioners. My name is Victoria Carpenter, the Airport Administration Manager. This is actually a follow-up action item from the March 20th, 2024 meeting. Staff and Mr. Gary Armstrong, the chair of the Palm Springs Art Commission, have been working together to identify a conceptual plan of relocating and grouping some existing art that is past security in the in and around the courtyard area of the concourses, and moving it to one centralized location where passengers can enjoy the artwork as they're walking to and from the Agua Caliente concourse. So tonight we're asking the Airport Commission to approve the conceptual plans of the art relocation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and just show everybody the 6 art pieces that we're talking about, and where we are proposing to relocate them to. And I even have Mr. Armstrong on the line here, and he's going to speak on it a little bit as well. But let me share my screen here. 1 second. Okay, fantastic. So just to kind of go through, this is the existing art locations that we have around the airport. There, you'll see that there are some sculptures here. So art number 1.
They're all sculptures, right?
Yeah.
They're all sculptures.
Yes, 2, 3, 4, number 5, and number 6 here. And so this is coming through TSA here. You come out of TSA as you're exiting into the courtyard area. And if you're headed down towards the Agua Caliente concourse, you'd be walking down this path here. And we are proposing to relocate the art pieces in different areas along this path here. With some proper spacing, there could be some changes with the artwork depending on what we find is best in that location. But this is primarily the conceptual plan. Gary, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so one thing we found recently with the Art Commission is the work has more impact when it's grouped together. We recently moved 3 big John Clement sculptures that were throughout the city, and we joined them together in Demuth Park, and suddenly people noticed them. We just installed the Pillars of Palm Springs along Talkwest Canyon Way, 6 new pieces all at once, and everybody on Facebook is talking about them. And the same sort of thing I think is needed with relocating the art here. And just for context, we originally started this discussion because a lot of the pieces need to be cleaned up and refurbished. There's the one piece, the round piece that's a little bit low on the screen there. That one right, number 3, that is up in the berm between the palm trees, and it's got irrigation on it, and it's been completely destroyed. It needs to be completely redone. It's supposed to be stainless steel. So a lot of these pieces need to be cleaned up. And we thought, well, since we're cleaning them, let's get them away from conditions that will make them hazardous and break them down. And then there are other pieces like number 4 and number 5, which you don't even really notice because they were just sort of shoved in a corner between, you know, the escalators and then the pillar there. And so the idea is we want to group them together in the promenade going to the Caliente concourse and create almost like a walking art gallery. And the one thing that's missing in this diagram is the Kennedy bust is there already. So we will install these around that and create this, sort of nice undulating rhythmic feel. A couple of the pieces, number 6, which is the sundial, you don't even really notice it. It looks sort of like a manhole cover because it's on the ground. And so that we want to elevate and create a sort of a pedestal to put it on. And the same thing is true with the one that is currently on the fountain area, the pool. I forget what number that is, right up on the far left corner. Yeah, number 2. They're low profile, and we think they need to be elevated. So we'll create this nice rhythm feeling in there. Now, when we install them, we'll also leave open spaces, so it won't be jam-packed like the diagram shows, but leave open spaces to install new pieces of artwork as well. So this won't be just these existing 6 pieces. This will be a series of, and it really will feel like a curated gallery. So, and just to clarify something Victoria said earlier, there are other pieces in the collection that are through the airport. We just didn't think any of them needed to be moved quite yet. So these are the 6 we're focusing on.
And Gary, you also mentioned, I think, in our planning session with the operations group that these will be lit at night.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So, and again, that's part of the process. Once we get them, we want to ensure that the lighting works well and beautiful. And I truly believe that this will make this a destination rather than just being a place where people go from point A to point B. They will stop and look at it, and we'll have this really relaxing feel.
Can you give us a sense of timing?
So the timing is dictated by protocol. So we need to get our installer to give us a budget. Once you approve it, we need to get a budget approved. We then need to go through permitting because we'll be installing cement pads and electrical in there. And then council has to sign off on the whole thing. And then once that's all done, it should probably be a 2 to 3 month process. The only delay for a lot of it will be the refurbishing of the artwork. And that we won't know exactly how long that will take until the installer looks at everything.
Comments, questions? Victoria, what do you need from us?
So we need the commission to vote tonight if they approve this conceptual plan to move forward.
And just for those of you who are new commissioners, the operations subcommittee and Gary's team at the art commission, they had a variety of discussions. This isn't new to us. We've had a variety of discussions going on over a year now, I believe. So we'll approve this. That means that this in the mural is would go into process, Gary, is that correct?
Yeah, the mural, I believe, is that's currently getting planning approval. I think there's going to be the public hearing on the mural at the May 2nd Arts Commission meeting, and it's going to council to be approved probably 2 weeks later. That'll be a pro forma approval. And then the artist should be able to get everything done probably the first week of June.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to have a motion. Is there anyone else wants to talk about art?
Anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand.
No. All right.
We don't have anyone at this time.
A motion to move?
What is the motion, please?
Go ahead, Victoria, please.
The motion is to approve the conceptual plan for the art relocation to the pathway heading towards the Agua Caliente concourse.
So moved. Second. Okay.
Thank you. Roll call, Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Behrman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Feldman, Fong, Hughes,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Michaelis,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Pye,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. Gary, one other request. I know you are so busy doing God's work all over the city here. But we also talked about putting in perhaps even temporary art in the concourse itself, or offering local artists to come in for temporary installations. I hope that idea hasn't been lost in these other 2 projects.
It's, we're not lucky enough to have a Victoria Carpenter helping us out for all of our other projects. So, we have not forgotten about that. We're just trying to focus on the existing art. And as I said, it's dictated by, we need to take care of it because it's getting damaged in its current location.
Godspeed. Thank you. All right, Gary, thanks so much.
Thanks, thank you.
Absolutely. Moving forward, Todd, AE.
Yeah, Marketing and Business Development Committee met Tuesday, April 2nd. Commissioners Hughes and Wise were attended in person. Daniel gave the committee some brief updates on signage, overall wayfinding during our construction period. I think a particular note is that the signage has been designed to be easily removed and updated as new concessions come online. Daniel also shared some new trade and barter advertising agreements that the airport has made with Palm Springs Film Festival, the current and next season of Firebirds, Gay Desert Guide, and Gallery Classic. So we have a prominent display of the airport in those locations. He also briefed us, as did Vice Chair Corcoran recently, on the Ottawa Caliente Concourse activation update. Nothing new to report since Chairman Corcoran's update. And he gives a brief update on customer comments that have been received from travelers. And I would just note that the top 4 categories, I don't think this will be a surprise to anyone, were cleanliness, Wi-Fi, infrastructure needs, and food and amenities. And then we also discussed a customer experience program that we're working group. We met in February, and during that particular meeting, we decided to hire a consultant who will begin the research and discovery phase for the airport. That will enable to create a vision for the program. That will then be turned into a scope of work for an RFP, and our goal is to issue an RFP before the end of June. And finally, Daniel briefed the committee on new FAA guidelines that are prompting Palm Springs to update their air service incentive program. And the committee provided feedback to him and voted to move this forward to the entire commission. And that's expected to be on the May agenda. Any questions?
Does anybody have any public comments on this item here in the conference room? Virtually, anybody? Raise your virtual hand, please. We do not have any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to 8 now. Are you covering for 8F? I'm not. You're not.
Oh.
This is the marketing and air service piece.
He did.
It's in the packet. Yes, in the packet. So I guess the question, if you review the activity of the national, are there any questions from the commission?
You might know it would be February, March, new record months. And those are the headlines for sure. Increase of 2.3% and 6.4% respectively over 2023.
Did we hit the, I heard there was going to be 2 dates in April. We have another record. Did we hit it?
We did. We did one screening 11,200 passengers through the checkpoint, which is the highest we've ever done. Happy to report that it went smoothly, but we're about to do it again. So we'll see how the next one goes.
Good. Has there been any improvement in terms of just the lines at rental car facilities during the 10 to 2?
I can't say that there's been improvement per se, no. Yeah. We're working on it.
Are there any public comments on this?
Anyone on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. We do not have any public comments.
Let's move on to the ad hoc review committee update. Victoria, do you want to do this together? Why don't you take the lead, and then I'll do color commentary?
Absolutely. So the ad hoc committee, they met earlier this month to talk about the menus that we received from Parodies, and we went through them. We dissected it. To our surprise, the Cactus to Clouds had the menu of only ready to drink alcohol, which everybody was completely shocked about. And so we took it back to Parodies, and Parodies said, hey, we are so sorry. They apologized up and down. They said, we made a mistake there. That was an old menu before we had expanded the footprint of Cactus to Clouds and made it into this really large bar, full service bar, as well as small plates, food items. So They do have a bartender there. They corrected that. They're actually going through right now and they're updating their menus. Because there was a lot of different feedback that we received from the ad hoc subcommittee. So it was very productive. We also talked about changing the location or changing the type of food that is being served at the Half Moon Empanadas. So rather than it being Half Moon Empanadas, we're coming up with some other concepts so that we can put that in there because it is a very small space. It has a very small back of house. You can't prepare large food items there, like pizza with an oven. It has to be things that are like a pre-packaged food because of how small the kitchen is. So we were coming up with ideas for what to put in that place there to take it back to Parodies. And Parodies is preparing those menus and coming up with a concept. They've actually asked us, the ad hoc subcommittee, to come up with some names so that we can make it more unique to Palm Springs and kind of like how we did Cactus to Clouds. We named it after a trail that literally walks up to the clouds. So they're asking for some feedback from the ad hoc committee about what we can name it. So that's going to help them put a concept together. We're going to be doing something that's related to a healthy gourmet, fresh salads, sandwiches, wraps, fresh fruits, maybe even some fresh juices like squeezed juice. And yeah, quinoa bowls as well. So more healthier options. We also discussed potentially putting in there some ice cream, but after speaking with Parodies, it might be better utilized if we had our own ice cream being sold at a different location rather than it being sold solely in that location. So that's kind of why we've settled on the gourmet sandwiches and bakery item, a nice market. So Kevin, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just a couple commentaries. I think some of you were involved in the discussion. We just felt like we needed to do something more healthy. And so the space at the top of the Volno escalator is where that was located. That is not plumbed for sinks. So you then pivot to the whole takeout thing rather than the options. Which we felt if the menus offerings were all healthy, all these salads would be made in the commissary and sent out to there. Salads, sandwiches, healthy items. And we were very happy that Parodies agreed to that concept. And as Victoria said, now we're moving forward, waiting to see what the exact menus are, and then we'll name it. I'll name it something that's Palm Springs related, but that was the big concern. That do we have enough healthy items across all of these menus? And we made comments across all of them. There were opportunities for improvement in every one of those venues, both the full service venues as well as the grab and go venues. And they've incorporated that and they've been very cooperative in saying, let's move forward and find a way to address some of these issues. The Cactus and Cloud things was a big left turn for us, for those of us that are dreaming about this major bar at the top of the bar. But luckily we found that that was a mistake, and it will be a full service bar with the sinks that allow you to do that type of services. So I think we're making progress on that, and we'll be working with them when we see the menus again. We'll go through them one more time, and then we'll share all the stuff with you with the future, the next month or two. Other questions on that? Would you, of course, Kevin's under. Get anything else?
One of the things that we noticed was the inconsistencies in pricing of same items at different restaurants. So they're certainly going to look into that as a recommendation, as well as a recommendation for mocktails in bar areas.
Any comments from the commission or from the public?
Anyone on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand if you have any public comments on this item. We don't have any public comments.
All right, so let's pivot to 8H, which is the concessions update, and find out from Jeremy, where are we time-wise in terms of rolling all these different offerings? Jeremy?
All right, I think you have the schedule in your packet there. I think everybody knows that we opened 9 cities a week and a half ago, so that's pretty exciting for us. And I think the plan here is still after this meeting if we can get it done in time. Kevin assured me we'd be done by 6:30 and we got 5 minutes to go, so. So whoever would like to go down there and just take a quick look-see, we can go down there after the meeting and do that. So it looks great. I met Kevin Wiseman down there today for a cup of coffee, made a bite to eat. I know Todd has been down there and maybe others have too. So anyway, it's exciting to have that first one open. You'll see in your concession schedule here that Hey Joshua and Las Palmas are kind of the next two to open there, are the first retail stores, and they're coming along really nicely. They should be open basically projected within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Actually, next week, they may even be turning it over a little bit early to the concessionaire to start getting in there and doing some training and things. So they're moving along really nicely. So we're excited about those. And then, you know, everything else is pretty much tracking on schedule. You see Cactus to Clouds kind of following in June, as well as Las Casuelas and Coachella Valley Coffee. So those two are kind of pushing to the June timeframe, hopefully by the end of June. At which time we kind of go into the next phase. So as soon as Hey Joshua was done here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then we'll flip over to the other small store and then close that store to turn that into an InMotion. So that'll be the kind of the next store to close. And then they start to get into the rest of the stores, as you see on the schedule with Vino Bobo and Trio kind of closing down in early July.
If we come up with a concept that improve the menus for the former having that be accelerated, it's a graphical space. Right now we push it off to the end. I think it's because we're waiting for a new concept, but if we were to level set on that concept pretty quickly and that would go sooner.
No, because the Half Moon Empanadas is kind of the final anchor that goes in where we have the lay down yard and construction. So that is the final piece that goes in there, and that can't go in there until we're finished Trio and PSP.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Questions on concessions?
Quick comment, I did a tour a couple of weeks ago. Lots of moving parts, lots of good stuff going on. I was very impressed. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Kudos to the staff.
Others? Comments from the public here or on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom have any public comments on this item? No public comments on this item.
Victoria, financial summary.
Well, since we only have 3 minutes left. Your financials are in your packet. I would like to just call out some changes. So just for the record, there are just some typo changes. I can tell you overall that we are doing very well in our financials. There is a typo change that talks about how our fund 415, which is our airport operation and maintenance fund, that the year-to-date actual revenue is 9.7 million below the prior year, because during the prior year we had the CARES Act funding for 6 million and the ARPA funding for 6 million. That wouldn't repeat this year. And then adjusting for those two items, revenue is up by 7% year-to-date over the prior year. And then there's even a little glitch with Fund 416, which is our our special capital projects that we have here. It talks about the expenditures. So our deficit, there is a deficit of 5.4 million that you'll see in our airport capital funds. And that's perfectly normal, because what will end up happening is at the end of the year, we'll end up transferring money from our fund 415 to fund our capital projects there. So we have a surplus of like $8 million in our fund 415 account, and we have a deficit of 5.4 million in our special capital funds account. So we'll be able to cover that deficit. But for the record, the year-to-date deficit is 5.4. At the end of the year, Fund 415 will transfer the surplus over. We can expect the revenue to be 85 million below budget to the push out of some of our associated capital projects. So you'll see that we're not near our budgeted amount, but we threw in everything, including the kitchen sinks that Half Moon Empanadas didn't have. And we went ahead and we threw it all in there. We had all of our projects budgeted. And so we're just not gonna be able to meet all of them, but we will have them in future years. So we have them projected and budgeted for future years. So that concludes the financial summary. If you guys have any questions, I'm available for questions.
Do we have any public comments on this item? Anyone on Zoom have any public comments on this item? We do not have any public comments.
AJ, projects and capital improvement on this area.
My report is in writing and I don't have much of an update or additional information aside from, just some information from IT that they're getting close to getting Wi-Fi working in the Bono and Agua Caliente concourses. So they said by the end of this week, all the ports should be installed and we should be seeing a significant and substantial change in those two concourses. That won't apply to the main terminal or to the courtyard, but there's progress. So just wanted to provide that update.
Maybe we should have a special event for that. See if our marketing group can come up with ideas. Great news. Yes, sir.
Anywhere on the water, the bottle replacement? What were those?
The Metro
Measure J project, so also not in my report. However, Jeremy's going to work on updating you guys next meeting for that.
So just to build on our last discussion, money's approved, the projects are in the queue. And next meeting, we'll know when we're gonna see water mountains and.
We're gonna be having that discussion, yeah, with the operations committee next, and then we'll come back to the commission and give you an idea of kind of targets, some general timelines.
You should also be aware that there's a whole discussion going on with the design of new bathrooms. Some commissioners have been contributing to work that Jeremy and his team have been doing, just gathering requirements for what the new bathrooms will look like and what state of the art and bathrooms. Right? Do you just want to get 30 seconds on that?
Sure. So we've just been doing some general kind of like very high level, workshops with Gensler where, you know, they've been putting some things on the wall and people are just pressing like green and reds and kind of really high level just to give kind of a little bit better direction to Gensler for the design. So we've had kind of a staff workshop and then we've also brought in some kind of outside stakeholders. I think we had there's Marco Caliente, we had council member Middleton, we had Kevin Wiseman from the commission, a few others. So far that's really been really good. And I think our question was, was there anybody additional that wanted to participate in an extra workshop or, did you think that was enough? And then, we're just not far along enough to really give the commission anything at this point.
So a couple thoughts just in terms of process. If you have a passion for this topic, let us know and we can plug you into the plan. But what will happen is the requirements will be summarized and the recommendations will be summarized. And that will be the task that will be brought to the commission. And then we can at that point say, is it included everything that we've ever dreamed about to go into these bathrooms? So we'll have a chance to do a deep dive where the staff has more time to do the work. Kevin was interested in this, he was advocating this, he jumped into this earlier process. If any of you want to get in earlier, you can, but I just want to make sure you know that it's going to come to us and we'll really be closely looking at these requirements, make sure it has everything you want. So let me just give you the offers. Are you okay to wait? Does anybody want to jump in earlier? Okay to wait. And you'll keep us informed. Executive Director, I'm sorry, anybody else?
Do we have any public comments on this item? Anyone online? We do not have any public comments.
Let's go to the Executive Director's report. Harry, just one comment. I know we introduced at the last meeting, both you introduced the fact that you're starting to work with these parking ideas. And some of this is mentioned in the executive report. I think we had decided that we'll take it to operations and let the operations subcommittee do some work on this before we eat up a lot of our time here. let them vet some of these ideas and provide input, and then a formal presentation with their fingerprints on it will come to the full commission. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, that's still the plan. We were really trying to initially move things along. We've been having our consulting firm basically on hold for the better part of 6 months, and we were trying to move things along, but we're willing to slow down, take that back to the operations committee, have them tour with it and see where we end up. I think the one, if there were urgency behind it, is anything that we do, we're trying to get implemented before the start of next season. Just to make sure that we have a seamless operation for next season. So.
Well, if that's the case, we have 2 more meetings and then we take off for the summer. So May or July, or May or June?
I believe he's taking it to operations in May.
So maybe in our June meeting, before we break for the summer, we'll go deep on this. So you'll have the input you need to move in this season.
Well, the plan is to meet the commission, because we're gonna meet next, the operations committee is on May 1, and then our plan is to come immediately after, to the commission.
That's cool. Any other highlights you want to share, Aaron?
Just a couple of things. So I've really been bogged down in legislative issues now. It's an election year, so apparently Congress decided to start doing their job, and so did the federal agencies. So we've been in the background dealing with a lot of budgetary stuff, particularly around the FAA reauthorization bill and things like that. We have really been focused on some of the budgetary decisions and appropriation decisions that have been made, because it appears that TSA in particular is starting to roll back a lot of funding to airports for law enforcement reimbursement, K-9 reimbursement, things like that. So I've kind of been working the phones a lot in the last 3 weeks to try and see if we can, with the other airports in California, to try to see if we can get some movement on that. So that's kind of been happening in the background, along with some other just regulatory and rule changes with FAA as well. So if you haven't seen me, that's why. It's because I've been dealing with legislative issues. But the other thing I wanted to highlight in my executive director report is last meeting, we were asked about unhoused individuals on the airport campus. At the time I said, oh no, great, nothing's happening. And then a day later, Jeremy said, we got problems. So we're taking a look at that. It appears that we've seen an increase in trespassers on the airport. By all accounts from the officers, they've been non-confrontational, haven't been causing problems. When the officers approach them and ask them to move along, they've been pretty amenable to that. But we're keeping an eye on that particular issue, just so the commission is aware.
Other questions for Eric? Are there anyone? There we go. All right, commission requests. Anything else from the commission that you'd like to either state or request you have for future agenda items? Anything that we haven't discussed or chatted about? Okay. So, we don't have to. Oh, city council actions, they're all in your packet, reports in your packets. The operations committee, what's the date of that, Jeremy?
May 1st.
May 1st. Are you agree with marketing any future?
Not set up future one.
Budget committee, I think it was the budget committee said anything? I don't think so. Okay. So it's really operations is the next. All right. We don't need a motion to adjourn, but we are inviting you all, if you have a minute, to come down and see our first big food and beverage outlet. And who's facilitating? Jerry,
All of us, so yeah, we're all gonna kind of try to escort the group down there, so.
if you have time, come down and we'll take a look at it and see what you think. And see 9 cities, our very first concession project. Other than that, we will adjourn. Our next meeting will be May 15th. And as always, thank you for all you do for the time you put for your commission. Thank you, staff, for your preparations. Next one. I know it was a long.